Good morning, everyone. This is Francis, Martin, and Curt from the Natural Law Institute. This is our bi-weekly Friday office hours Q&A where you submit your questions and we answer them. Usually Francis reads the questions, Martin responds, and is usually right. I don't want to say that too loud and too often. Martin's already extremely confident that he's right all the time. And then I add depth and color. We have done hundreds of these questions by now, and we've developed quite a catalog of Q&A material, which is kind of interesting. I kind of wonder if we're going to have fun with an AI at some point, go through all this stuff and see what it puts out as a consequence.
There's already a problem that certainly my worldview has evolved since we began, and some answers are no longer.
I'm sure the AI will be able to pick that out.
There must be this. I mean, your worldview. I'm not going to go. I'm full of energy this morning, Martin. So I might be mischief today. Sorry, I apologize in advance.
I forgive you.
So if you want to leave a question for us, there Francis puts the link into submitting the questions in the comments below. Was that what the area is called? Is it called comment? What is it?
Comments, video description. Yes.
Video description below. And just go there and put your question in. We'll load it. I think I don't know exactly how. They tell me every 2 weeks and I forget how the process works, but I know basically it gets vetted somehow. Martin responds to it, and then we work at we answer it in real time online. Anyway, there's a lag behind it, and we want the lag. The lag is how we make sure we have enough questions to answer. Usually we have quite a bit of a backlog of a month or two, right? Is that how it works?
I think, let me see, we are probably running a healthy 2 months backlog. We've moved on to the February questions now.
Great. So, all right, without any further ado, let's proceed.
All right, so question 1. What is Curt's method for taking notes from books, for example, history?
My answer isn't useful to most people. If I hear or read something, I pretty much remember it. If it's worth remembering. Well, I mean, I'm not going to say all of it. I mean, some of the stupid shit I remember is just human curiosity. I'm not sure it's worth remembering. But the way I actually do it is I write everything down, but I don't write down like what the author says. I have a sort of theory of the world, the universe, and I write down what I think about the author says, and then when I've read quite a bit of the book, enough to develop an opinion about it, I write about that. And so if you were to see my hard drives, which are stacked up somewhere in a bag around here, the archive of my hard drive, I have an ungodly number of text files. The reason I have hundreds of thousands of posts on websites is because I started using websites as my as my notepad, right? And then I use social media as a notepad and a way to sketch. So I write a god awful lot, and if I write it, it's in my head. I may not be able to find it again, but it's in there. I think my argument is when they teach you to take notes, they're dealing with a similar problem, which is, what are you trying to know? Are you trying to repeat what the author has said? In other words, are you trying to take notes so that you can answer a test? Or are you taking notes so that you can use what the author has said. And I do the latter, and schools and academies teach you the former. I'm a dick, so I don't do what they tell me. So, and that's a very big difference, because if I think a book is useful, I may read it 2 or 3 times, because each read helps me understand the author's mind better. But I'm not usually trying to recite what the author said. And that's what they're usually teaching you in school, is recitation of what the author said. So in that sense, this is why I've always enjoyed essay tests instead of uh, uh, like multiple choice or write this answer tests, is because I am no interest in reciting or memorizing what some fucking idiot said. And I don't see much value in it, and I think it's the wrong way to do it. But it may be the simplest thing they can test for in a large population. Nobody who listens to us needs to work that way. If you're able to perceive what we say, you should probably work the other way, the way I talk about it. And so because the problem they have with young people and taking notes is they don't have thoughts about things, right? The best they can test for is whether you grasp what the author said. But I don't do that, and I don't know many people who do. The way you work in the academic method, I was taught, is as you're going through, you actually take a stack of index cards, and as you capture an author's idea, you write down where it was captured and what the idea was and any thoughts you had about it. And then to write a book or a paper, an essay, you just arrange the index cards in order. My memory makes that, my disagreeableness makes that process intolerable for me. And my memory makes most of it unnecessary. But so I do the part where I would write down, think really in Notepad, the things that I found interesting or I learned and what I thought about them. It's not just what I learned, it's what I think about them. So the act of putting it into your memory is the thing that is your opinion of it, right? That's the thing that sticks. If you haven't, one of those memories that allows you to remember quotes from things or if you cram the day before, you can sometimes do the opposite. But the thing that makes it stick is, what do you think about it? That's what causes memory formation and understanding. So that's essentially what I do. So is my response useful? If you can do it, it's useful. If you're following us, it's probably useful. But in the sense of, can they use this technique throughout our education? I don't think so, because I don't think enough people have thoughts about what they're reading to be able to make use of it. And so, as usual, there's an multi-stage education experience that should apply to people who have different developmental arcs. Um, uh, and I would say that's the real underlying issue. I mean, I'm writing a little bit the past couple of days about failures of education because of something another academic had said. And it's making me angry because you realize how poorly the education system is currently functioning. And it's not helping people. Yeah, exactly. It's really terrible. Um, and the thing that it's helped me understand as a New England Protestant is that we used to do this stand up and talk in church for fucking half of the day on Sunday. Church wasn't a thing you went to for 45 minutes or 50 minutes and left. It was a thing where you went there and you had these the priest or the we called
Pastor.
the priest, the pastor would open discussion, right? And you were supposed to stand up and speak your mind if you had a thought. And this led to extraordinarily good teaching in a community across a lot of boundaries. In other words, class ethics, class boundaries. And so what you see today is them trying to, not successfully imitating that process because I'm not sure they're really trying to get you understanding as much as indoctrination and obedience.
I'm actually curious. So when you went to church, I'm assuming like you weren't standing or talking when the pastor was preaching, but you probably did so in Sunday school, right? So I remember Sunday school was also a good part of church activity. So when you were in Sunday school, did your Sunday school teacher facilitate more like a discussion or is more of a teaching thing?
There was less of a discussion.
Okay, so where did you get the opportunity to stand up and talk?
I sort of abused my teachers and professors. It's mostly in college. I would say it was college. It was college. I had started having less restraint in high school. I could tell the story of Mr. Garska, my English professor, sending me to the office because I told him that I didn't need to take notes because what he was saying was obvious. And I guess sent to the office. Unfortunately, he thought I was being an asshole. I was just being honest. It just sounded like it's the same thing.
Well, I mean,
I wasn't trying to.
It's the, I guess it's the curse of smart people, right? We come across as assholes, even though we don't mean to.
I don't say it like an asshole, and I just said it like I didn't understand. I understand what you're saying is obvious. I don't need to write it down. That made him so furious. It made me literally furious. He threw me out of class and sent me, and I'm like, I get to the vice principal's office, which is the same in a Catholic school. They're the disciplinarian, and I'm like, I just said what's true. I don't have to take notes. So what he told me is that it was disrespectful to the teacher to not take notes, whether I needed them or not. And I'm like, that doesn't work for me. I can't. That doesn't make any sense, right? So I tried to at least keep a pencil in my hand while I was in class. Another time, I mean, I had a simpler thing in with another social studies teacher, where I said, or college. I had another one with college frequently with college professors, that I would just say, well, that's just not true, and some of them love it. It's weird. Like my ninth grade social studies teacher, he fucking loved it. The college professors, I'm thinking of one in particular, he was teaching Marxist bullshit as history, was terrified to have me in the class. He just wanted me to be gone.
Because you'll shine the spotlight on the stupid.
Well, I made him look like an idiot. Like,
Yes,
and I didn't mean
exactly.
that, right? I just, you just have to ask the right question. I'm like, or say, that isn't true. The empire's basic, their thinking was along these lines. And I know that because I've read the fucking books, right? I mean, it's not rocket science. You tend to attribute people motives they don't have. This is a common thing today, is that people often think they're doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. You have to look at it from their understanding. They can be wrong. They're wrong a lot, but people often think they're doing the right thing. That is, people in charge. Because, but that doesn't mean that because the people who are in charge think they're doing the right thing. It doesn't mean that of the body of people, which is Martin's statement of the repeated statement of the obvious. That doesn't mean that everybody else is on board with the good intentions. They just see an opportunity and exploit the good intentions that these people might have. And even the people who are on board and control with the good intentions, you know, they're making trade-offs, right? They're still making trade-offs. So you get
the belief that their intentions are good actually makes them more dangerous.
Yeah,
this
is right. Utopianism is absolutely, you're absolutely correct.
It's that old adage, the what is it? The road to disaster is littered with good intentions.
Yeah, the road to hell. The road to hell is paved.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and so Martin's right. I mean, the worst people are utopians. I mean, they're terrible. The thing you want is it's the same thing that we've been talking about in politics since, you know, Aristotle and the Greeks, which is what you want is a benevolent dictator. The problem is getting one. And when you say benevolent, you're not talking about utopian. You're talking about practical. Right, you're just solving problems, right? Practical problems. It's people that want it. You know, people. You very often find people who want to leave a mark on history. Putin's one, Trump's another one. You know, and they can either do incredibly great things or incredibly terrible things. Right, because they're right. In Trump's case, I think he's being practical. And because he understands the
hold that one, because we have a question later on. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get to it this week, but there is definitely a question on that.
All right. So did I answer your question about the question of taking notes?
I think so, but I'm going to add one more point. I think your what you said about writing, just copying down notes versus actually writing what the author, like essentially in what the author wrote about in your frame, that can only work once you've accumulated enough knowledge in different domains.
Correct.
You know, if you ask an 8-year-old to do that, I don't care how smart the 8-year-old is, he just does not have enough accumulation to be able to say anything about a certain subject.
Right. My general argument, though, is that I understand that that's the case. There's a point at which you can adopt the opposite, right? And my strategy and my problem is when people ask the question like this, method for taking notes from books. I suspect most people are doing it the old way instead of the synthetic way. I mean, if you look at the shit I wrote about, like Hayek, I think I read the Constitution of Liberty. I mean, I read almost everything he wrote 3 times, right? And that's because I get it the first time. I start to understand the depth of it the second time. And the third time, it's like, okay, I can work with this. How can I use this, right? And so, but the amount of writing I did about it at the time was ridiculous. I mean, I wrote all sorts. I mean, it's hard to. I write a lot, right? Right, and it's how I remember. It's just how I remember. And the trick is, it's like funny. I have my penmanship is so bad that I had to take typing because I knew that it would be a utility for me. But when I took typing in the 70s, early 70s, that was a class for girls, right?
Stenographers.
Right. It was a class for girls. And so I got teased about it a little bit. And I'm like, look, computers use keyboards. You know, there's a teletype. There's a teletype down the hall and it's connected to a computer. And if I want to use that thing, I got to be able to type. So
What the
And
hell is
so
a teletype?
a teletype is a printer with a keyboard attached,
Uh-huh.
and you type stuff, and then you hit this key and the enter key, right? And it submits that to the computer distantly, and then the computer responds, and it prints it out on paper. So,
But
so
why
instead
the
of
round trip? Why not just? I mean, the IBM has that electronic typewriter was the rotating ball thing.
yeah, but that's only no, that is what they use. I think that's what they use. I can't remember now, but it's still a typewriter,
Uh-huh.
right? I mean, you're still a typewriter that has enough memory to hold so much, that sends a batch over the phone lines to a remote computer that does a process on it through. They made a big deal of it as time sharing. Today, we can't even imagine the computer that doesn't actually do multi-process, threads and all this other stuff, multi-process threads. But and then sent a response back, and then it printed it on the printer, right? I mean, it's a printer. When you're typing, it's coming out on a roll of newsprint, basically. And when you want to save your program that you've written, you tell it to save it, and it puts it out on punched tape, long yellow punch tape with holes in it, right?
Mhm.
And then when you want to come in and work in the next time, you come in, you sit down, you load your punch tape, right, and you pick up where you left off. But it's typing, and for me, the combination of typing and computers was a way that I could basically be much more productive given my handwriting. I took drafting in 10th grade, and I converted to mostly printing whenever I can use it. They say that autistics have less fine motor dexterity. I don't know if that's true.
I
I don't think
think so.
true. And so I'm like, I don't think it's what it is. I think I just don't pay attention. I don't pay attention to the writing.
They taught me a dysgraphic too. They was good enough for teachers to somehow make sense of it.
Mm-hmm.
Most people today can't even write cursive, so I'm still
Well,
ahead.
I had to teach myself cursive. Not very good cursive, but 80% there.
You write beautifully, dude. I mean, I think it's funny to say that. You write beautifully.
Well, I see plenty of faults with it, especially but then
You
again,
see
I'm
plenty of faults with
I'm
everything, too.
comparing myself to the guy who wrote the book that I'm comparing to,
Yeah.
who's the handwriting master. Apparently, like his is the standard for all cursive, or at least
Yeah.
American Spencerian. If I focus on it, I can write good ones, but if I write fast, then it kind of falls apart.
If for those people who don't know Francis that well, this is how he thinks about everything, right? It's like there's the standard isn't does this function for me sufficiently? It's is this godlike? And if I'm not godlike, it's not good enough.
Well, let's just say that there are room for improvement. Well, case in point, I was pretty proud of myself the other day. I shot a bill drill. For those of you who don't know what bill drill is, you can also look up on YouTube. But you draw the gun from the holster, shoot 6 rounds, no misses, right, all into the A zone at 7 yards. So I shot a bill drill in 2.73 seconds. The best in the business, the grandmasters, can do this in about half the time, like 1.54 or 1.4 something. But that's more genetic than anything else.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, other than a Mozambique drill, how fast you got to be? Right. And if you tell me you've got six shots and you're taking down one of the body, one of the head across 3 people, that's pretty impressive to
That's
me.
a different drill. That's called El
Yeah.
Presidente.
Right.
draw,
That
you shoot 2 apiece across 3 targets, you reload,
yes.
and 6
Right.
shots more.
That's hot shit to me. I mean,
Yes.
I don't care. The six in the center doesn't really do much to me. Doing three people in a second and a half.
Yeah,
That's
no, you can't do
scary.
even the best cannot do that in the second half. I think the best that I heard of, I haven't seen it, can do it in 3 seconds. I've done it in 8. If you're a really competent shooter, like a master class shooter, you can probably do it in 5.
Hmm.
Anyhow,
For the alley scene in Tom Cruise plays a hitman at one point.
Collateral.
That's how it works. I mean, I watched him and I'm like, Jesus, I guess they use that in training now. That video in training now. And he practiced for months to do that.
And he was shooting blanks. He doesn't. He
Yeah.
only have to make it look like it's a hit.
Yeah, no shit. But even his backward twip, so he could draw right without being the draw necessarily being
Oh, yeah.
seen, right? And
Yeah, that's
then,
actually tactile deception.
yeah. I mean, that shit's amazing to me. The thing I was taught, which I don't see people teaching, I suppose it's because it's dangerous at ranges, is firing while weaving. Do you see that taught anywhere?
Wait, firing, but what and what?
Pistol firing while moving.
I mean, we do that in classes. You just do it at static.
Yeah.
You don't do it at static range because most shooters, even the so-called people who know how to shoot, right? They don't really know how to shoot, and that's the
Yes.
band stuff. That if your gun handling skill is not up to par already, yeah, you could easily shoot yourself, or most likely shoot others, or shoot the ceiling and so on.
Well, that's why I'm like, everything I want to do at a range is something like that, right? I don't need, and it's getting pretty hard to do that at public ranges, at least around here.
Not in your public range, i.e., like the boost type of stuff. People do that in pistol competitions all the time. Like when the weather starts to get nicer, there are USPSA, IDPA matches around here, and you pretty much have to move.
Anyways, all right, I don't want to distract too much because we could talk cool gun shit for the rest of the day.
I think we should move on to the next question. All right, question 2.
Then we wonder why first questions are so long. Then we wonder why first questions are so long.
Right.
For so long.
Okay, so I'm putting a cap on that. So question 2 from Suki. Could Curt please explain how ternary logic, by the process of evolutionary computation through adversarial competition and selection via negativa, producing continuous recursive disambiguation, explains the why behind the emergence of new polarities at successively higher levels of complexity of all stable phenomena, from the quantum background to elementary particles, to subatomic particles, to atoms, to molecules, molecular organic molecules, to cells, physiology, mind and behavior, and collective mind and behavior, to institutions and civilizations. For instance, the polarities between protons and electrons, anions and cations, masculine and feminine, force and selection, etc. And can the axes on which the emergent polarity or polarities resides be predicted in advance? E.g., can the emerging polarity of gender be predicted beforehand if one was watching primordial life evolve, or are they contingent on the system-specific factors? And thank you. Well, what you're really asking is whether that's computational reducible or not.
Well, it's computationally reducible to the first principle. I can list the principles probably. Well, first of all, I want to compliment. I've gone from who is this guy to I love this fucking guy, and I've had a couple of conversations. I've had a conversation with him now, and I just think he is wonderful.
Oh, you found him? Like got in contact with him?
I don't. He contacted me
Oh, awesome.
because he heard that I wanted to talk to him, and I'm like, dude, you are, and his humility is a thing of disturbing beauty, given his ability. I mean, there's not a lot of people
about me.
What?
You used to say that about me.
I still say it about you, but I can't. I still say it about you.
Well, you kept saying it long after there wasn't any humility left.
Oh God, I love you, man. So the guy says, the guy in this question is beautiful, because it's like, here's how everything works. Can it be predicted in advance? This is the difference between kinds of reducibility. So if we say mathematically reducible, no. Or if we say computationally reducible, yes. If we say mathematically predictable, that's a property of mathematics. But when we get to computability, which is combinatorics, no.
Oh, wait. I want to. I'm interested in this. When you say it's computationally reducible, I thought that means if something is computationally reducible, it means that you can actually predict using computation ahead of time. You can predict the outcome. And much of nature, I thought, is computationally irreducible.
Okay, go ahead.
Here
Martin?
specifically, we're talking about emergent properties, and you cannot predict how these will behave just from its parts. You have to actually construct.
Correct. You have to construct it. Did I screw up then in my narration? Yes, I did. So you can reduce evolutionary computation to its first principle.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot predict its emergence, its properties of emergence. This is right. In mathematics, you can write down the Riemann hypothesis, but I don't know, somebody claims to have solved this like yesterday, the day before, but it becomes very difficult to prove, which is you would think that there's a pattern to the discovery of primes. What there is a narrowing of range, but until now, nobody's found a means of computing the possibility primes except operationally, which is the same problem in computation. There's no way to predict things that emerge except operationally. And so when we say reducibility, I mean, can I express an observed
Can you
thing?
can you express the algorithm behind it and
Yes,
how it runs?
correct.
Okay. But you
And-
cannot predict. You cannot. But that doesn't mean deducing to the algorithm does not mean that you can predict. Hold on. But if you deduce the algorithm, and if that algorithm is indeed correct, you should be able to use the algorithm to predict outcomes. What am I missing here?
You have to go through the same number of steps that the real thing has to go through.
That's right. It's very similar to the problem of P not P, right? Which is is there any way to do it other than the way it's created? Right? There may not be, right? So the question is, when you say reducibility, is can I reduce this to a description? Well, I can reduce this to a description, but can I reduce it to a system of regularity, right? Which is what mathematics does. Because mathematics predicts things like this, right? It doesn't predict things that have emergence. Programming emerges within the limits of the primary variables, right? The primary types that it can compute, but nature can invent new types, all right, because it's just the combinatorics of whatever will emerge. So has that makes? I feel like I'm watching your face for, have I reached a state of comprehensibility? And I
I'm not sure I quite grasp it yet. I get the mathematics part.
right,
And
and so think of mathematics. You have very small number of types.
mhm,
Right? In programming, you have a broader range of
yeah,
types.
and you can construct new types all the time, or
Yep.
structures. The types are still the
Right.
same.
Correct. And the the universe can construct even more types. What's its limit? The limit is the electron shell, right? There's only
Yeah.
so much you can put in, right? And that there are only so many dimensions with
Mm-hmm.
which you can organize things. We usually do
Mm-hmm.
this hexagonally. So, um, but and so you have constructive limits.
Mm-hmm.
But since these things don't need to be, these things can be combined almost infinitely.
Mm-hmm.
Molecules, proteins, right? Organisms, right? Proto-organisms, organisms, right? Since you can get in there, I mean, you eventually get up to things that have memory and can predict, like us,
Mm-hmm.
right? At which point, I mean, what's computability, right? Computability is any pattern that the predictive set of cells can sort of seize. So you can, there are even there are. I mean, one of the things I like about the current AI issue is it's making it visible that it's just another system of measurement, right? The thing is, it's a system of measurement that is beyond human reducibility, right? We can't reduce it except to linguistics. We
Wait,
can't reduce
what do you
a
mean
neural
it's a
network.
system measurement that is beyond human reducibility?
Okay, so neural networks, Bayesian, I'm going to call it Bayesian networks,
Mm-hmm.
function by Bayesian accounting, which means they're able to keep track of more variables discretely than humans are.
Mm-hmm.
So as a system of measurement, it's what's allowing the great leap in mechanical everything, because we used to be bound by what could a lever do, and then what a gear could do, or combinations of gears could do, right? That's what we used to do, is use gears to calculate.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Then we got what we think of as traditional programming models, which would be the three different levels of programming: the do this, the functional programming, and the object-oriented programming, which is
Mm-hmm.
simulation,
Yep.
right? And now we've got Bayesian accounting programming, right, which is something that we cannot reduce to any of those forms of programming, et cetera, or those gears, because its capability of synthesizing measurement is so much higher. The example I use in most of life is counting, which is, most human number systems are 1, 2, and more,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then we develop counting, which is, some number of fingers or whatever. And then we develop sophisticated accounting, which you think of it as like sophisticated counting, which you think of as actually positional names, right?
Mm-hmm.
Naming numbers bigger than we can experience. And then you get into what we call arithmetic, which is positional naming at different scales. Then you add the negative numbers, which is able to, because since there's no such thing as a negative, it's the first instance of memory. And then you go to the next level, which is multiplication, division, whatever. And so you're building up this mathematical capacity over time, and you eventually get to the limits of mathematics, right? I mean, you get to the limits of it. The same thing happens in programming. You eventually get to the limits of programming, and so what we're trying to play with now is what do we do about the limits of Bayesian accounting? Because there's unless you can do what humans do, which is break it in, is once you can do that much complexity, you eventually run into the noise problem, whereas there's no margin, there's not enough marginal difference to make a decision. So what you have to have is a means of breaking it down into pieces that can then be compared, right? Which is basically reducing the mind, right? It's just what's the scale of mind that can do that and hold that all in what the equivalent is of short and medium term memory. So you run into this same problem is across everything. The thing about the universe is because we have the periodic table of elements, and because we have evolutionary computation on one hand, the understanding of the atomic bonds, we can, and understanding of electromagnetism. Well, gravity's off the map right now, but for stupid reasons. But because we have these, we have the grammar to describe that, right? The problem is we can't predict the combinatorics of a thing that's here's the ternary logic, which is really simple, but then we have the number of the limits of the electron shell versus the internal whatever, its stability, and then we have the limits of recombinatorics. How many ways can this combine? Usually 6, right?
And it's the inability to predict the combinatorics due to lack of memory and the ability to compute, i.e., like you can't really compute it because there's no computer that can.
Here's a great way of talking about it. Yes, we can compute what we understand is possible recombinations. We can't compute emergence, which is the behavior that occurs because of it. Like proteins do work. That's what they do. They're machines. They do physical work. That's why they're important. They're not random things that random elements that just float around and can recombine or not, right? They actually can transform one set of energy or complex energy or molecule into something else. And so they do work. That's fucking profound, right? Great. We can sort of figure out what kind of work they can do once they've emerged. But I mean, if you look at how proteins are structured, it's fucking insane. You need Bayesian mechanics itself, Bayesian measurement to actually predict anything, because nothing is discretely decomposable into a linear prediction, right? So it's a problem for it's a hell of a problem of prediction. You can't predict emergence. In other words, you can predict what is possible combinations. They're infinite. The problem is, of those possible combinations, how many of them can develop or produce an emergence that's of utility in increasing the complexity of the combination. So I mean, the cell wall is fantastic. It's an incredibly stupid, simple thing that starts out with basically some barrier between one thing and another where there's a charge differential. All right, well that's basically filtering, right? It's resistance versus capacity. Resistance inside, resistance outside, capacitance inside. And so it's not a surprise why that emerges from that thing. It took a lot for life to conduct enough experiments to try it, right? Because that's all it's got. It's the same problem we have. Now it turns out, and this is interesting. It turns out that we can at some level use the current level of computing and knowledge to predict how to improve life forms. Unfortunately, this turns out to be able to improve viruses and bacteria and whatever, right? So that they are better than the ones nature develops, right? Because nature has no way of knowing what direction to take things. And because of one of the emergent effects of nature's use of recombination is the word is going to escape me for the moment. Anyway, I'll think of it in a minute. It basically, nature tends to figure out a way to encapsulate something that works and use the encapsulation instead of the individual pieces in it as it. And that encapsulation can succeed or fail, right? So you get this, God damn, why is the word not coming to my mind? Theory or something. Fuck. And so what happens is nature accumulates means of encapsulation. The same way I suggested earlier, this might be a cognitive leap. I'm sorry if it's hard, but the same way that what humans do when they get or LLMs need to do, or any Bayesian system needs to do, is you start to need to encapsulate things for comparison, because you can no longer predict because of noise everything at the same time. In other words, nature produces reducibility, right? It has to, right? Reducibility is to some components, and it does. God, why can't I think of the term? It's stupid. I write about it all the time. And so one of the emergent properties of complexity, of necessity, is some sort of compression, right? Of something, or encapsulation of something, so that it can be used again. Just like we use numbers to measure things, and we use words as measurements for very complex things, right? So nature does the same thing. There's nothing in human behavior that is not reflective of this first principle of nature. So what I'm trying to get at is that there is a logic and grammar of evolutionary computation of the universe. Volume 3 basically discusses this, its emergence and its application across everything. It's why language follows continuous recursive disambiguation. Why our brains, or the language that we use, is based on the principle of wayfinding, right? And our brain, everything evolved in our brains is evolved of wayfinding. But what's wayfinding? It's the process of continuous recursive disambiguation of the pathway from one state to another, right? I mean, so the universe works by a very consistent and very simple principle. The problem is, what I think he's asking is it predictable? No, I mean, this is the same problem we have in economics. You can explain what happened economically, but you can't necessarily predict it, except at the wide margins where general rules apply instead of specific. Did I make that? That's a pretty good.
That answers the second question, right? So, i.e., is it can be predicted in advance, emergent polarity gender be predicted beforehand if one is watching primordial life involved? And the answer is no, because even if you understand the first principles of how the system works, you cannot predict its outcomes. And it reminds me a bit of how Wolfram, probably a few years ago now, wrote an article explaining how complexity can emerge from seemingly simple principles. And
Correct.
the example that you use is the simulation, right? So you can start in the, say, an enclosed space. You start with all the particles moving in a single vector. And after, so it's essentially simulating our molecule movement. Let's say you start with all those molecules moving in the same direction. And then after n number of, doesn't have to be very much, it's just after a small number of, actually I should say, the principles on how the molecules interact in the system is actually very simple. It's all mechanics. They bounce onto each other, right? And new vectors yield and bounce against the wall, and new vectors yield, and so on. But after a very small number of iterations, the way these molecules move is indistinguishable from chaos.
That's correct.
And
It's
in that case, I guess using computation, he was able to predict, literally using computation, he was able to simulate how it came to being. But the problem is the reverse is not possible. Given the capture of the current chaotic state, even knowing how it works in first principles, you cannot deduce how these, like what vector these molecules moving in the first, in t equals to 0.
Not enough information present, because basically every interaction or every n interactions erases the knowledge.
And also in this case, it's a simulation. He was able to, it's a really simple simulation. As soon as you expand the scope of that simulation, say not simulate air molecules in a box, but air molecules in the atmosphere, you just don't have enough memory or computational power to make any prediction unless nature does it.
Thus, the argument is the only computer not capable of computing the universe
is the universe itself. Yes.
Right.
But is it true, before we close on his second question, I intuit that if you run computation in a more, I don't know how to say this best. You can, the universe can run computations, and then we can use the elements in the universe to build a limited scope computer like the ones that we have, and make lower dimensional computations. But the opposite is not true. We cannot build using a computer using a limited set and try to predict what the universe can do, or multiverse, or whatever it can do.
We can categorically predict, right? So it's like economies. You could say, well, if this stuff happens, the economy is going to cool. If this stuff happens, the economy is going to heat, right? I mean, you can predict that, right? But you can't predict anything you can act on, right? You know what I mean? You just can't. You can't predict emergence. And the most important thing is Taleb's insight is the things that actually matter are tail effects, because they have way more impact than regular effects. And so we can predict regularities, but we can't impact tail effects. That's the same thing as saying we can model things, but we can't predict the emergent consequences of things. It's the same basic problem. So yeah, you're still limited to edge cases being the most influential and producing the most emergence. Does that make sense?
Yes, and that actually reminds me of a analogy in programming. Back when I was testing software, the edge conditions are always the most interesting because they determine whether your program works or not.
Yeah. It's true. Like in consulting, what you're usually trying to handle for is you're trying to, there's difference, product and consulting, two different ambitions, right? In consulting, you're trying to do it for you're trying to do the best result for the least money, right? And so what you do is that you try to answer the 90% of cases, but you don't look for the edge cases. All you do is handle errors, right? In other words, you just handle the error gracefully, all right? But and you worry about fixing it later, right? But but that's because whenever you have in-house software, right? You're always maintaining the fucking thing. There's always something else, and it's not worth the logarithmic increase in cost to handle edge cases. But if you're a big company and that logarithmic increase is offset by the same problem, which is logarithmic increase in support calls, right? Because people do in large numbers hit the margins, right? Right. So you have declining. You have actually a return on suppression of edge cases in large product companies, where you don't have in custom software or integration software or individual customers. I mean, and then that's you just explain that to customers, and because especially in product companies, they're like, well, we have these quality standards, and it's the same argument I used to have with Boeing. I don't know, this is a bad argument. I shouldn't say this right now, but it's funny in retrospect. It's like, guys, you can't buy toilet paper with the same criteria that you buy an airplane component. I mean, because the risk category is there, but you buy the same shit by the same method instead of just separating. Toilet paper was the argument I used because it's the most ridiculous. But you can't buy all this stuff with the same purchasing process if it has different ends. And then of course you get the real problem that emerges at Boeing, which is they ran into the Soviet problem of the decline in quality of workers, right? And they end up the decline in quality of production because they end up in a decline of the quality of management.
Okay, before we go down that tangent, we still haven't answered his first question. He says, could Curt please explain how ternary logic by the process of evolutionary computation through adversarial competition and selection via negative production, selection via negativa, producing continuous recursive disambiguation? Explain the why behind emergence of new polarities.
There is no emergence of new polarities. It's our cognitive bias to try to frame a thing at its scale. What we've illustrated with the ternary logic at all scales is everything is reducible, and it doesn't matter. Sex example. I think he used sex as the example. Sex is the example because there's a low return on more than two sexes. And you actually amplify defects faster with more than two sexes than you actually eliminate them. So you're not getting the benefit of having more than two sexes. All right, all you're doing is increasing the complexity of producing survivability.
Wait, but
so
I mean, there's only two sexes. Now, what's the third? If you're saying ternary logic exists now, then what's the third position?
Like, for example, you could have some life. This has just been. I'm just reciting what's been written. There's nothing, right? So, the A produces an egg, B produces a sperm, and C produces the gestation. In other words, you have to implant the egg and the sperm and the gestation. I mean, that's just an example, right? You have really weird shit like, what's the anglerfish? Like the male is like this big and the female's like that big. Mm-hmm. And the male has sex with the female and just becomes basically a sperm dump and literally dissolves into the female and is gone. And all that's left is his sperm ingestion so that she can lay eggs. So you have that version of it. You have species where the male does as much of the child care as the female, and the female does the hunting. You have a lot of variation on the theme, but you still are faced with the same problem of recombination sufficient for evolutionary computation. Excuse me, reproduction, recombination for evolution or adaptation. Let's just call it adaptation. Adaptation into evolution. You still have to solve that problem because the whole if you can't produce persistence, you can't produce more recombination. And if you can't produce more recombination, you can't produce adaptation. Eventually you're done. I mean, fucking alligators and crocodiles are freaking hysterical. And there's, coelacanth. I mean, that's freaking thing's hysterical. All right, a clam. No side effect here. Giant clams are freaking hysterical, right? A lobster is hysterical. I mean, what's the problem with a lobster? It gets to the energy conversion possibility of its body is no longer large enough to get rid of the shell. It's like humans. We can't digest any faster, or we'd burn. We'd light on fire. Right?
Lobsters are actually quite amazing underwater. I saw one once doing what do you call it, snorkeling, and then that thing swam backwards like a snake. It's amazing. All right, I think we did that one.
Well, one of my persistent complaints about this is the implication that it's all the same kind of polarity, and it's not. Masculine and feminine and positive and negative are not at all the same thing.
What do you mean? Because it's really obvious to me, so I'm having a trouble.
Like at the atomic level or even below, you have literally opposites with positive and negative. Whereas it's much more complex with masculine and feminine, and contrary to what we're told, opposites don't attract. There also has to be a lot of similarity.
Oh, I see. You're not generalizing the principle. The principle is you still.
It is generalizable.
What?
Because I don't consider it generalizable.
There are still
every emergent stable relation forms its own distinct polarity that works differently from the.
I don't disagree with that, but it's still going to be a polarity with things that cooperate and produce increases and things that fail to cooperate and produce decreases. Right? I mean, it's still expressible. It's still expressible by the same term. The reason I'm doing this, Martin, is because you want people not create ways of understanding that are incommensurable with other ways of understanding. Whereas if we reduce everything to ternary logics, they're always commensurable. They're always mutually understandable and mutually comparable. I would.
Are they becoming commensurable or conflatable?
Sorry?
Are they becoming commensurable or conflatable?
I mean, the general principle is really simple. It's just differences explore different dimensions of opportunity, right? And agreements or cooperation produce utility for both. That's all it is. So that's the general principle. And so it's a difference engine. It's a difference engine. And I'm just saying, explain everything as a difference engine. And is that what's?
Well, here I'd avoid using terms like utility and agreement for like atoms.
Right, and I've said before that if in order for to generalize a principle, right, for scale independence, you have to find a way of describing it. Now, some things are more useful to describe as charge or spin, right, and some things are more useful to describe as agreement. In other words, anthropomorphism is a way to think about scale more generally. In other words, if I anthropomorphize something, I don't mean that atoms are having sex or voluntarily cooperating, right? I mean that the concept that if I say it at the atomic scale does not explained sufficiently at the social scale. And so I'm trying to find terms that people can use and express them that way, so that we can have scale understanding that a principle follows scale independence, which allows for commensurability. Otherwise, what we get is we get grammars, disciplinary grammars, right? Or we get within disciplines, we get ways of thinking, which prov- provide an understanding from this point of view, but it's in that point of view is no value deductively or inductively, because the other points of view are incommensurable with it. Whereas if you reduce everything to the same ternary logic, and you can, because the universe has to work that way. It doesn't have a choice. Then what you say is, okay, if I reduce this ternary logic, then I can identify deductive and inductive parallels between this system and that system, and I can see their causal relation. It might, and I don't. If that's that, I know you don't like this, but I can't I can't figure out what to help you with, other than what I just said. Is things aren't identical enough for what you're saying, or are you saying that the ambition of universal commensurability is not enough, is too imprecise for how you want to look at the world? I don't know which thing you're thinking of. I can't.
You just want to be careful about not overstating similarity, how it works at every level.
Oh, okay. Well, I would say that would be a limit statement, and I'd agree with you. I agree with you, because no matter what system of thought we produce for people, bounding it, in other words, what we do is fucking complicated, Martin. I mean, it's complicated for humans, right? And you're just giving a great example of it. And it ties back into the education question we had earlier, which is what you can do with any bit of knowledge is limited by the knowledge you have already, and it takes a lot of knowledge to do what we do. It just does. So I understand your concern. You're right. And I love that you are so defensive, because I am you have to somebody has to what do you you have to compensate for my optimism about human nature. Or you would call it my foolishness? Is that what you would call it?
I'm not sure it applies to this topic, but sure.
All right, let's move. I think we should have answered Suki by now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on here. Question three from Chungus. When are you going to release a book? Like, seriously, you've claimed that book was imminent for years. *1, search for keyword volume in Curt's Twitter. You said that you'd publish something by 2026, and we're 2 months into 2026 at the time of the writing. And last time someone asked for a release date via office hours was 6 months ago. And there's a link to okay, I see. That was the YouTube from one of our prior recordings. We replied that Volume 1 was months away from completion, that Volume 2 was already more or less completed. Now that you're apparently working on an AI concurrent with the unpublished books, I guess, there's no demo on the website, so the site is marketing something that basically doesn't exist. The closest I can get is using Curt GPT. Is there something I'm missing here? Does Excofonte, one of these days, I all know how to pronounce it correctly, write his video based on information you've given him, or does he just use the information you've drip fed through tweets? There's essentially nothing on website or on Substack. I'm willing to believe you guys are geniuses and doing important work, but I'd like something more substantial, white papers even.
I can answer the last part of that. Excofonte is now part of the team. He writes the videos himself based on content from NLI, but also from other relevant thinkers to the topic. The last one is entirely based on Mike Maxwell's work. This sometimes poses a challenge in resolving the contradictions, as if ones between Curt and me weren't hard enough. I review the videos and sometimes make suggestions for changes before they get posted, but these days usually don't even need to.
Curt very conveniently disappeared. He's just getting his coffee.
All right. Martin's right, as always, of course. I'm going to answer his broader question. Brad and I were tooling along on the books quite nicely, and volume 2 is basically done, right? I mean, the state's the same, and we realized we had to make a volume 1. Volume 3 is not yet done. And those are the ones that are necessary to train an AI. So we can release volume 1 as soon as Brad and I can finish enough of the code to hand it off, the AI to hand off the code. And that is, so there's the code is you take the books, you convert it into basically rules, and you stick that in the code. Then you make the code work. You're wrong that the demo's not on the website. It's on. If you log into the website, which is runcible.com, and if you log in and get an account, you can go to the demo page and use the demo. I can't remember if you need to be approved to do that or not. I might have to ask Maurice. But there should be no reason you can't use it. Whether you can comprehend its output is something else, because it's very detailed. I'm working on that right now. If you want to work with Runcible, you can go to the 3 models we have up there on custom GPTs on ChatGPT. There are 3 different models of different precisions. I use them every day. They work just fine. I have a 4th model that hopefully will come out in the next couple of days. I'll let people play with it for a while before I announce it. And the 4th model should be the most current one. As we add protocols, the models get more complex, so I have to update them or create new models. I prefer to create new ChatGPTs because I want to preserve the older ones so I can see the contrast. As for the real demo, if you want to really see the hardcore shit, that's up on runcible.com. You log in, the link to the demo appears on the top. You go to the demo page and you do your thing and you wait and it comes back and it'll walk you through the process and everything. Might be a little overwhelming, so I suggest for most people, they just use the custom GPTs. Excuse me, I forgot the one. Okay. As for so now the books are an interesting problem. Volume 1 is basically the theory of history, right? Is our theory of history. It's historical cycles, and it's our net contribution to the history of civilizational cycles. That would make us like the 4th major contributor to the field, after Toynbee, Carroll, Quigley, and Dr. Turchin.
Surely Polybius has to be first.
Huh?
Surely Polybius has to be first.
That's true. I'm sorry. I was thinking of contemporary. Polybius would be the first, of course. And even Khaldun would be in there in the Middle Ages, right? I mean, it's not like we're the only. I was just thinking of the ones that are relatively modern. And so that puts us in the career of it. So we ran into another problem, though, is since the books are creating the IP for the AI, we are somewhat reluctant to release those books until we have converted the what's in the books to IP, copyrighted and intellectual property as a practical AI. as a sort of defense against it. So that's one of the reasons we haven't done it. I mean, so it's basically multi reasons. However, what we've done is created a primer, which is what we've originally, our original intent was, we called it the pamphlet. And I'm about 3/4 the way through writing that primer. The primer is the reduction into ordinary language of all of this stuff into forms that is written for human beings, instead of the books that we've produced for the volumes are really analytical treatments that are necessary for training computers, AIs. So our suggestion would be that you wait for the primer, right? Which I don't know what we're going to call it yet, and you wait for the introduction to the cycles of history. Those will provide you with everything you need. I think if you were to look at volumes 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, the density of that material, other than maybe the book that Martin and I have started and beaten our way through on the law, other than that, because that's that's the output piece of this project. I think those intermediate volumes are not easy for people to understand. I think they're quite difficult. I write incredibly densely, and without what's called appeal to convention. In other words, I just lay the stuff out there almost like I'm writing a computer program, a specification for a computer program. So while your complaint is just, I've been weaseling out of this by saying that Elon Musk does it. Why can't I? Trying to see if I can get a chuckle out of it.
He does what?
Elon Musk says it's going to come out next year.
Elon Musk is writing a book.
No, he has. You don't know this.
Oh, you mean his his vaporware, like the Cybertruck thing? I mean, not the Cyber Semi thing.
It takes way longer than he says, right? And
yes.
I'm the same. The difference is really in our case the opportunity to fund NLI and our work commercially through the combination of merging NLI's IP, Reality by Chanting's Oversing product, and the Runcible intelligence using our work, right, and with the new LLMs. That monetary potential is actually driving us such that we are more interested in moving that forward than we are in getting pride of authorship like usual academics in publications, only to have other people profit from it. So that's what's driving us. So I would say that our plan right now is to finish this, is to raise some funding. And as soon as we're finished with this, I can hand off code to Luke and some others on the team, and they can begin building the rest of the stuff. Because the epistemology core, which is the hard part, because the machines don't want to do it. And the rest of the stuff is protocol development for application within different fields like medicine and law and blah, 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 blah. So what I expect to emerge is sort of a three-layer product stack. One is the free one for consumers, which will be custom GPTs. The second one will be the one for people who do serious work, which is the Runcible AI itself. And the third one will be the how to run businesses, industries, governments, whatever, with the Oversing product integrated into Runcible AI, which is a very different way. In other words, all the primary organizations, the other labs, are trying to target essentially programming, and we are targeting targeting the rest of the population, which is people who want to do programming, not even power users, but people who want to run their organizations with the advantage that is produced by AI, and at large scale and large numbers of people cooperating. So that's our sort of vision and what we're trying to bring about. It's incredible amount of work. We're a fairly small team, remember, and so we have the problem of doing the research and development. Excuse me, I forgot the fourth one. The fourth is, of course, the activism that Brandon runs, which is it's taking a life of its own. It's pretty profound. So we have this 4-piece model that we're working with to bring about civilizational transformation. And the books are one piece of it. My advice to you is to focus on the primer, which is the methodology. How it's accessible to humans, right? The cycles of history theory that we've implemented, which explains the crisis of the age, and in the end, when Martin and I get a chance to produce the rest of the law, which I don't know if I could do without Martin. I'm not pessimistic enough. I mean that as a compliment. I'm not suspicious enough. Is that the right word? I'm not suspicious enough. Or is it Martin? Is it both?
Just say realistic.
Realistic.
You're too optimistic to create the stick.
Yes, yes, yes. That's true. I agree. So it doesn't work unless Martin is there saying, "But you forgot this," or "But people will do this," or "They do that. They also do this," which which is the only way to write a law. You have to have it, because I don't think of all the negative stuff. I think of mostly how to stop people from lying. I don't think of all the incentives Martin thinks of. So if you want to look at what you need to know, it's those four things, those 3 things: the primer, the cycles of history, and the law. The piece on religion, Brad and I will do when we're older, probably when we've got less pressure. And I know that's one that everybody wants, but in our queue, that's down the road. So if that explains it, it's that we have multiple motives and incentives going on, and there's only so many of us because what we do is fucking hard. Or did I answer that question?
And I just want to add.
Oh, wait, one more. You notice that tweets. I do intentionally drip feed through tweets because it produces a very large net. This also helps me think things through and see if they're accessible to people. I have finally done 2 things, mostly at Noah's prompting. I have just about finished collapsing all my work into 200,000 some odd posts on my personal WordPress site. So you'll be able to go search and find that stuff there. I'm trying right now to get the fluff, the stuff that doesn't matter out. And then secondly, I've created a browser plugin for a Chrome that inserts the ability to post something I write to Substack. And so I just have, if I feel it's valuable, it'll go over there. I have a lot to go back and add. So I'll probably, there's stuff that's meaningful for Substack and stuff that isn't.
That's why I've been getting the Substack notifications. And I looked at it, this looks like your X posts.
It is. I've got X posts that mostly are articles that I want to go over there, right? And because there's a lot of people that don't use Twitter or don't want to and prefer to use Substack. So if it's a Substack type of thing, I'll send it there. But in general, I do my writing most of the time either in a separate document or in Twitter articles. And I do that because it's just the easiest way for me to think things through. And so Twitter will continue to be my sketch pad. and anything of value, I will move to Substack for general consumption. Because otherwise, I won't write for Substack. I don't need another thing to do. I'm just trying to provide a distilled place to go to, where you don't have to see all the other chatter. You just see the things that I find are meaningful. Right?
I was going to add, so this is great timing, because just a few days ago, Curt posted, what is it? Do you call it chapter 1? You published part 1 and 2. I don't know what chapter or part of the book it roughly maps to, but it's the intro to the crisis of our age.
Yes. The Christ the Age builds from history to present, right? And it covers the previous thinkers, but it also covers a lot of theory. And so I'm trying to build up to show how there's nothing special about the crisis of their age. Whenever you add a new block of people with different interests, in this case women, to a polity, you end up with an integration problem, right? And you end up with either accommodating or prohibiting or amplifying their different biases. And when you add aristocracies, like to a federation of monarchies, that's not so bad. When you add the upper middle class, it's a little problematic. When you add the middle class, it's a little more problematic. When you add the workers, oh my God, it gets really problematic. And when you add women, it becomes catastrophic. And this is just normal. We explain why that's normal and why the situation we're going through is normal and what to do about it. But my feeling was that the history of thought did not include this. And without including it, you tend to blame too much on the government, which is obvious, and not enough on the population, which is less obvious.
This is actually a great segue into question number 4 from Suki, which he asked, what are some significant factors that influence the duration and nature of a civilizational cycle across history?
I was going to add to the last answer that it doesn't make much sense to me to blame the entire population. Like, you can blame individual actors, but if it's thousands or millions of people, then it's the incentives. And someone else created the incentives for them. He is to blame.
Yes, you're correct. The way I position it in the article, it's not an article really, it's like 150 pages.
Yes.
All right.
I'm surprised Twitter lets you post that long.
It doesn't. You have to break it up. I think you get 100,000. It says you get 100,000 characters. You don't, or I can't remember what it is. You don't get 100,000, and you don't even get close. Shit. What did you just say that cued me, Martin? One of you guys just said
that if you're blaming millions of people,
right,
and the problem is whoever produced their incentive.
It's always some elite's fault, right?
Yes.
Right, but because they're gaining power by satisfying a demand that should not be satisfied.
Yeah, it's usual high and low versus middle process.
Correct. Yes. In this case, the Industrial Revolution was quite burdensome on large numbers of people. The subsequent technology revolutions have been quite burdensome on some people. And as such, there are two choices. One is that you can take the masculine approach and help people learn to adapt. In other words, you can give them training and discipline and education. But that's real fucking work and it's cost money. Or you can do the feminine approach, which is giving them therapy. And so I describe the 20th century mass movement, at least in the post-war period, as the feminine therapeutic, which has been about the worst thing that fucking could happen to kind of a civilization, because it is whether you call it managed decline, it's still elites parasitically riding down the destruction of the civilization rather than improving it.
Gottfried has a chapter on that therapeutic state in multiculturalism and politics of guilt.
Yes. That's Paul Gottfried?
Yes.
Yes. I got to tell you that story about Paul sometime. I got a great story about Paul. He's if you want to know a not incompetent intellectual, but a prototypical neurotic Jewish male.
Anyways, the answer to the fourth question. I'll repeat the question. What are some significant factors that influence the duration and nature of civilizational cycles across history? This is necessarily somewhat speculative, as the list of civilizations isn't huge. I think underappreciated factors are geography and access to natural resources, whereas quantity, quality, and homogeneity of demographics is the answer everyone expects. Otherwise, it's hard to reduce it down to simple factors. A right decision by a right man in the right place could potentially add a century to the cycle. Or subtract it.
Well, I mean, in volume 1, the cycles, I cover this in extraordinary detail. But if you put bacteria in a dish, it's the same fucking problem. Except bacteria don't develop hierarchies. So in general, I'm not going to go over the full one that's in volume 1 right now. But in general, there's some identification of a surplus. In other words, there's a means of producing a surplus, right? Right, which increases opportunity, right? Then because of that surplus, you get the ability to have specialists, right? Fund people who actually investigate niches and exploit them and find opportunities there. And so you develop elites, and from elites you develop intergenerational propagation of elitehood, which ends up producing institutions in the ternary logic of institutions, talking people, trading people, authority people. Because those institutions and the multiplicative effect of surplus production, the increase in surplus is provided by the division of labor into specialties and the organizations that produced capacity for all this productivity at scale. You end up creating and maintaining enough surplus that you get what's called elite overproduction. Thank you, Dr. Turchin. These elites become parasitic. They develop dependent groups, and people, corruption. They develop dependent groups, and they persist their position over the interests of the polity. You get because that surplus and all this economic movement going on, you get demographic expansion, which brings you to the problem of resource needs and persistence of growth as a means of maintaining the structure we've just talked about, the hierarchy of it. face the problem of military expansion and frontier pressure in order to increase resources, opportunity, resources, opportunity for more growth. In other words, population expansion, and then you run into the problem of administrative scale and the breakdown of information processing. In other words, they didn't have they didn't have computers back then, and they didn't even have telephone lines. So administration becomes a friction, and this thing develops a life of its own. Because it develops a life of its own, you basically have the development of widespread opportunity for what we think of as corruption. The place lose the quality, the people, the institutions, the people that lead are no longer competent of necessity because of the scale, lack of because of the scale, the incentives, and the lack of information. They start to lose legitimacy. You have class relations break down, and as you do that, you find essentially defection from the group's evolutionary strategy that made their growth possible, and you end up with a, lack of cultural capacity for self-regulation, and you end up with collapse by any of a series of means: technology shifts, trade work shifts, ecological shifts. Um, uh, in our case, what's happening in the West is assimilation capacity, failure of intergenerational transfer. In our case, failure of reproduction sufficient for intergenerational transfer, and the pervasive expansion of truth versus comforting error, or what I call therapy. So you have a pretty predictable cycle of growth and decline, and this cycle is, I think of it as an information problem. In other words, an information incentive, information transparency and incentive problem, and that's how we talk about it in volume 1. Is that solving that problem is actually quite hard. The example we face today that's going on in NLI is Brandon's work on what's failing in the core system, and it's actually I would say it's reducible to a problem of scale. Our world is so complex, our legal law is so complex, and we're trying to make homogeneity across a huge continent with 11 different sub-civilizations in it, and the conflicts that are emerging between the original civilizational cycle of it is better to aggregate and develop commensurability, trade, morals, ethics, manners, governance, policies, whatever, to prosper until you become stagnant. The whole totality becomes stagnant enough that you need to actually refragment in order to gain independence, to seize new opportunities for you that are actually limited by your membership in the whole. This is, of course, Martin is talking about this from the European side all the time, is that, yeah, post-war is pretty useful to be part of this whole fucking conglomerate. But today it's not clear it is useful to be part of this whole fucking conglomerate. It's better to be, and China's facing the same problem. It's not useful for the South to be stuck with the North, or the West for that matter, or the West. Is the East? It's the West, yes.
Yeah, it's the West. It's the inland provinces.
Right. It's not useful for the advanced part of the civilization to be stuck with the backward part of it. So think of India's problem, for Christ's sake. So the civilizations run into these problems. They go through these multiple cycles, and basically it's a breakdown. It's a breakdown of advantage in cooperating because the incentives are now to defect instead of cooperate because of accumulated defecting among the elites. That's it, right? Um, the defecting among the elites is possible because of a lack of information systems, transparency, and accountability, right? Those are the three factors that cause the breakdown of it.
Well, that's also because in during feudalism they had capital that was tied to the land, and now they don't.
Correct. I'm sorry, that's a brilliant add, and I should have mentioned it. So when when the only thing you can do to improve your capital production is to expand into new regional territories, especially if they're better than yours, is a military expansion. This leads to acceleration of the cycles. One of the missions of the post-war era, stated poorly, if stated at all, was that we are no longer agrarian bound, and trade is more effective and more productive than imperial expansion and wars. And so the basic argument becomes then borders are now not viable, and you should focus on your economy and the human rights of your people. Focusing on the human rights will enable your economy, and will enable you to produce something of comparative advantage regardless of the productivity of your land. Right? That's the basic argument. Um, anyway, so if you say you have longer cycles tend to have expandable surplus, disciplined and adaptive elites, high social trust, strong legitimacy, low cost internal coordination, effective assimilation, and truthful institutional feedback. Jesus, tell that to the fucking Democrats. Shorter cycles have narrower surplus bases, elite inflighting, legitimacy collapse, demographic strain, rising administrative cost, external military pressure, and epistemic corruption. We have all the shorter cycles going on. That's what's going on. Despite we started having all the advantages we have all the bad stuff going on. So I think I've answered your question. What is it? What's it?
That's
Suki, you'll like volume one, you will. Matter of fact, I'll send you a draft as soon as it's complete enough. I don't know when that's going to be, but as soon as it's complete enough, I will send you a draft for your opinion. All right.
ready for the next question.
I'm scared.
All right, also from Suki. How does the NLI manage the enormous and ever-increasing volume information and new ideas must be integrated into the work? And how does Martin, Dr. Brad, and Curt manage to parse all of the ideas and information into a structured, coherent, exhaustive, and future-proof body of work? I'm asking because I'm moving on a project myself. I'm working on a project myself, and I keep encountering relevant information and generating ideas that I add to my backlog. And at this point, it is very overwhelming. I don't know if I will ever finish it if I keep on going like this, even with the help of AI and infinite credits.
Well, my answer is the same as Curt's to the first question. It's probably not ideal, but so far, if I perceive something as important enough, I remember it.
That's probably true. That's certainly true. I think we have a couple of things. One is we talk a lot to each other, especially about what's going on currently. The second, we have some people in the organization who go out and find things and bubble them up to us, Maritz in particular. The third thing is, and I suspect this is what you really want to know, Suki, is that we have we have a set of frameworks, right, that are highly correspondent with reality. And so when we find something new, it's not a matter of changing the underlying theory. It's a matter of finding where it fits and if it helps or hinders anything else, helps people understand or not. Um, the feeling you're having is what you always do in research and anything of complexity. I doubt what you're doing is not complex. And it is the criticism my mother used to give me all the time is, Curt, you've been working on this project for like 20 years. I mean, are you going to be done? I'm like, Ma, you're never fucking done, right? Civilization isn't a done thing, right? It's just something you keep adding to, right? I think the hard part was getting to around 2021 when Brad came along, and he and I decided we needed to switch from the philosophical to the scientific prose, because it was just too was not working to make something ascertainable by the philosophical model. And I had started with geometry and logic and worked up from there, and it was way too egghead for humans. And so I realized I had failed to communicate it. By switching and rewriting it in the scientific frame, it became much easier to tell the story, much more consistent with the rest of the academic material. And then Francis came along and organized the group, and organizing the group gave us a management team that can process these ideas and filter them. As you see with Martin and I repartee back and forth, Martin and I have fun with it because we're both equally stubborn. But like Luke, we have the same issue with everybody else. Luke in particular will get stuck on some idea and he'll fight tooth and nail over it, right? So it's not it. What you're trying to do, Suki, alone is quite hard. It's what I was doing alone, and I was having a hard time with it. Once you have a team but working on it, you have co-conspirators, so to speak. It becomes a lot. I mean, the amount of stuff like I just share with Francis, we just have been, either on these meetings or in chats or sitting at his dining room table, which is the most fun part of it, is just, you get, there's a lot of value of that. I talk to Brad every day for a couple of hours, and then we work at least 2 days a week on delivering deliverables. And that collaboration is an amplifier. There's just no substitute for. We have chats going, a whole bunch of them. I don't know how many there are now on different topics. So we sort of deal with put ideas around. So I'm the synthesist of it, and I capture it and formalize it. But there's a lot of people involved in what we do. So our ability to filter, organize, and fit into our model what's insights and decide what's meaningful and not, it just turns out to be that's what our organization does. I mean, it's just what we do. I don't know if we've had any major things lately. Have we had any major
define major things?
Like stuff where like, wow, we got to really do that. We really got to. I mean, we have them all. Like, there's nothing that's disrupted our theories, right? I mean, the big thing is I didn't expect, and I don't know if any of us did, Brandon to be so successful in the court system, right? That's working out well. I didn't expect the AIs to be as useful as they've been. In getting work out or help producing a business attitude for us. I think that the only thing that's been surprising to me is the old argument I've had is the Overton window, when it shifts, tends to go really freaking fast. And I'm kind of surprised how fast things are moving right now in every direction. When, stuff we were saying, we were saying in 2021 or 2020, stuff I was saying in 2016 or 2014 or freaking 2012 for that matter, it's all here, right? It's all present. So I mean, the big shocks are we've gone from, hey, will you fucking listen to us to shit. It's happening. I would say that's the big thing we adapt with. But there's nothing. We are successful because of our team. Period. End of story. I mean, I just see. You got to have Bryan around, or you got to have like Bryan or Luke or the guys, so you can tease somebody. Well, I could say, well, except for you, Luke, or except for you, Maurice, or except for you, so you could actually put some trash talking or behind a compliment like that. But it really is the team.
Bryan would try to fit it all into some movie plot.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting having Bryan, who is a sort of what do you call it? Modernized version of Young, right? It's what he is, right? He's a Jungian that uses modern movie and literature, or movies, not even literature, modern movies as his parables. And it's awesome, really. But you can always count on him coming in from the side with something. In some degree, wait, this is something interesting. In some degree, aren't all of us somewhat trying to be are we therapeutic? I'm trying to
Define
answer.
therapeutic.
Oh yeah, so there's therapeutic, which is the feminine version,
Mm-hmm.
which is I'm trying to get you to manage your emotions so you accept the world as it is, versus I'm trying the masculine version, which is I'm trying to empower you to provide you with agency in the world as it is. Right? Those are the two different.
I don't
I
think
mean, that's
is what you described. I think feminine therapy is you're not to blame for any of this. It's all men's fault.
Yes.
well, there's the men's version of it, right? We got to where we are because it's all women's fault.
No, but whereas like we got there because the elites have figured out that the votes are buttered on the feminine side, and so that they sell therapy, right? That's actually the issue. I mean, I don't know. Most men are like, women are awesome. They're just not suitable for government governance. That's the problem. Mostly because the herding response is just too high. I mean, they'll conform. They'll conform to whatever the mean girls say, and whatever's hyper-consumptive at every opportunity. In the writing I've been doing, I call it the adjudicative. I did it yesterday. Anyway, I wrote a good piece yesterday. I'll find it and share that.
With the right incentives that existed throughout most of history, women are the conservative sex.
That's correct.
And they have to be, because they're by nature they're expensive and valuable.
And they elected Hitler.
Yep, they did.
Did they? I wasn't aware of that.
Absolutely, positively.
Wow. Okay. As a reaction to the Weimar 20s.
Yeah, it's too much uncertainty, too much risk. When you're taking care of kids, you're taking care of polities or companies or whatever or groups. You have a relatively long wave cause-effect cycle going on, right? And so you can absorb variation. But when you're dealing with munchkins, rugrats, there's not the immediate. You need to take care of them every day, no matter what, right? There's no reserves there for them. So women have to have that instincts. It's fucking awful when it gets applied. It gets applied to what do you call it?
Polity. Or civilization at large.
Yes. Sorry. I'm just trying to find this thing. can't see it. I don't want to waste time.
Have we-
Oh,
we
it's
have
a Semitic feminine mythic grammar versus European masculine Judicative.
Yes, I did see that piece.
Yeah. Anyway, all right.
Have we got time for one more? It is a little bit past now.
I'm up for it. How hard is it?
Well, then let's do question 6. From Suki, can Curt, Francis, and Moritz, if he is here, elaborate on what Runcible is designed to solve, its use cases in general, pricing, publicly release date if possible, and when it will be a wrapper for Anthropic's models, especially Opus 4.6?
Okay, 2 pieces. There's 2 real questions there. The first question is, I said already that there will be versions of it. We're going to have the publicly available one. It's pretty good. I mean, which will not cost you anything, I don't think. Which is really just the custom GPT. Then will be the I don't know what to call it, the serious one, which it will be correct access to Runcible and its full protocol set and the rather abusively detailed analysis it provides. And it's not just one. You don't just talk to the thing once, you get a first judgment out of it. Then you say, refine this if you want to, and you work it through different steps until you want to certify it, at which time, if it's certifiable, we'll stick it in the truth corpus. So it's how to do work that produces a liability defense, right? So this is why we can use Runcible to get into the business of high liability markets, which is the other LLMs can't. And the third is the Runcible use, which is how to use this kind of knowledge at scale. Right now, all I'm doing right now with the Runcible engine is I'm trying to make it so the output is human tolerable instead of the density that it's under. Once that's done, I can hand it off to, because I'm trying to do this, I was trying to do it last night, couldn't get it done. Trying to hand it off to Luke and Noah and the crew and Moritz, who can begin to work on the application of the epistemology. So then basically the architecture will be done. So is what Runcible is designed to solve. So Runcible is designed to solve a series of problems, which is to provide an AI that tells you the truth. Right? Most of the AIs out there are designed to be assistants. And by assistant, they mean it will do some office work for you, programming work for you, that kind of thing. Help you do research, help you do that kind of thing. It's very white collar specific, programming adjacent effort. And so if you get into, what's the one you like here? Anthropic.
Anthropic, yeah.
Anthropic is becoming a standard for office work because it's inoffensive. In other words, it's not only quality output, but it is highly politically correct. The problem for that is that for us in that world is that we can't tell you the truth under political correctness. So we can't provide liability defense. We can't, in other words, we can't, if we can't speak the truth, we can't provide you defense liability. So we can't do things like medicine, law, insurance, and most government, military, and of course, most real research in the behavioral sciences and anything outside of physical sciences. So that's the market we're going for. Why? Because that's where all the money is. Because even if the cost constraints continue to drop, this kind of compute is extremely expensive, and so if you want to make money at it at any scale, in relation to the compute and the costs of work to maintain your market position, it's very hard to do it without high liability markets, where finding the truthful answer is extremely valuable, not only as legal defense, but as market offense. In the case of government, we can't afford people we have to be able to reverse the institution of lying, so that so that laws can be constructed that aren't full of lies. And even in the sense of the simple stuff, like we figure the most common use of the product will be actually curation of media, news, and reporting, because this thing will tear it apart. So I don't think we've implemented. No, I haven't implemented the lie detection protocol, I don't think, yet. So the problem with putting Runcible on most AIs is that they are designed to lie to you comfortably. And so if you want to put us on, say, Anthropic, you would work with Anthropic, right? But Runcible would have to then post-process whatever Anthropic told you, because we can't get inside of their gates. A gate is a thing that you have to jump over in order to get an output out of the thing. Anthropic likes to lie to you nicely. It's pretty good about it, and I'm not, saying that isn't the right thing for their market. It's just that not the market we're aiming for. So in essence, you can point this at anything, right? You can point this at anything, but we can't apply the Runcible protocol to anything. We can only apply parts of it to it, and therefore we can't certify it. In other words, I can't certify something out of Anthropic. What we could do is take a response out of Anthropic, process it through Runcible, and then certify that, right? But we can't certify a response from Anthropic because their safety guards are one of their central value propositions, as we saw with their argument with the government.
All right.
Is there anything else said there? I don't think there's anything else we said there. So wait, what else did he go to? Where is it?
Ask for pricing, public release date.
Well, I mean, it's just funding from our standpoint. I mean, we will have the demos available for you rather shortly. It's rather costly to run the demo on that gives you full access to the thing. It isn't abusive, but it does run up tokens. In other words, it's not free for us to issue it. Like, it's essentially free for us to use a custom GPT. But using our Runcible engine is a WordPress plugin that goes to a Amazon router, which then munges the stuff up and sends it over to, in this case, OpenAI, which runs a sequence of things on it, sends it back, gets it restructured, and sends it to the UI, which is then formatted and prettified for the reader. There's money involved. There's money involved because we don't do simple shit. All right, it's not like, I can't remember how many gates there are. There's like 32 gates, I think, that it has to pass. And so it costs, it doesn't cost dollars, but the cents add up. You can spend $1 processing a chain of things, in Runcible. A buck in tokens. I mean, that sounds like not a lot, but I mean, you talk about a lot of people using it. You know, it turns out to be real money in a month. So our basic idea is we can make this available to you relatively quickly. The question is whether we can scale it into a business. We're going to have financing. We already have customers. It's not a problem of getting customers. Our customers just need us to have the funding to pay for the people to do the implementation. That's not. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be that long, but you know, we've already learned that my time estimates are optimistic. Which any project manager who's run.
I was going to say, like any developer I've dealt with.
Yeah, I mean, the project managers and the dev leads just laugh at me, right? When I show them a schedule, they say, "Well, you've got all the jobs down here, but it's not going to take this long. I'm going to go work with this." I'm like, "Fine, okay." My job is my risk reduction is to know what's the scope of work, right? Your risk reduction is how long it's going to take, right? That's I promise I will get the architecture and scope of work right. But what I will not get right is how long it takes, because like, as you know, I'm optimistic.
The irony is usually that the program manager is the one that keeps on wanting to add features. And in this case, I had to, which is called feature creep. In this case, I have to hold you from feature creep.
Yes. Which he's, by the way, he's really good at. I mean, you know why he's doing that for a living. I feel like I'm being called into the throne room and laying prostrate on the floor. Say, "Yes, sir. I will try to do this." Is that an exaggeration, Francis?
Yeah, I think you exaggerated a bit. Okay, I think we're good. We actually went over 18 minutes beyond the normal end, and we've done the
But
audience
as usual,
testings.
we were 10 minutes late.
Hmm?
As usual, we were 10 minutes late, so.
Yes. Okay, so Suki, what we're trying to solve is the solution to AI that can actually address high liability domains instead of just be assistants, right? Because that's where the fucking money is. I mean, it's that simple.
All right, Curt, would you do the outro?
All right, thanks everybody. I really enjoyed today. It's Friday, April 3rd, 2026, right? Is that right? If I got the right year? This has been Francis, Martin, and Curt for the Natural Law Institute. This is our bi-weekly office hours chat. Please read not the comment section, the description below for where to put your questions if you want to have them, and then wait for us to answer them. Love you all. Thanks for